Hello everybody, Blake Bauserman here with Sneak Peek. We are here today at Austin Film Festival taking a look at F11 and Be There, a new documentary looking at one of America's greatest photographers.
Burk told a story about being in the jungles of Cambodia and being confronted out of nowhere, three Khmer Rouge who stuck weapons in his gut and planned to kill him. Without knowing the language and without them knowing English, with gesture, facial expressions, he was able to convince them to not kill him. And on top of that, once that was out of the way, they even allowed him to take their portrait. And so I said, this guy, I knew of his work, but that story solidified, in my mind, somebody needed to tell his story. I found out no one had. I reached out to his partner after my wife said, you got to tell the story. And she said, I think he'd be open to it. We ended up going to visit him. And I talked to Jethro and told him this is a possibility. Would you be ready, willing, and able to do this? And he was totally on board. When I told Burk the plan, he said, if anybody was to do this, I would want it to be you. A month later, Jethro and I went into production. We didn't waste any time.
Well, David, of course, was the rainmaker that made it all start and made it happen. But then Jethro and I very quickly became basically brothers. And when we work together, we can complete each other's sentence. We will be traveling across the country and we'll see something and I will start to say something and he's already finished it. He knows right where we're going, or vice versa. So we just developed such a lovely rapport. And by now, I mean, I think we think of each other as brothers.
So I grew up shooting the South as a Southerner, as a kid, and Burk's work influenced me a lot. I didn't really know his name as much as I knew all the work in the Life magazine collections and those kinds of things. So I'd been looking at his work forever and just had no idea it was him until I met him. I was like, oh my God, here's a hero of mine. So yeah, and it really, he really made me raise the bar as far as what I wanted to do with the cinematography and with the storytelling. I had to make a piece of art around an artist. Otherwise, I'm not doing him justice, because he doesn't deserve just an A to B biographical documentary. He deserves something that well, at least it deserves the attempt to be transcendent, right?
And I just love the way he manages the camera. There are things that he's done in a film that I know how stark and plain and how little he had to work with. And he is just magic.
My favorite moment's probably when we realized that this was going to be something socially important and that had relevance to our time and possibly moving forward. That was it. I said, okay, this is not just a story of an amazing man who's had many stories to tell and more to tell, but it's also a story of how history repeats itself and how we need to be careful and aware.
So my last question for you would be, I know you mentioned growing up in the South. Yeah. Like, I grew up in the South as well. I'm from Richmond, Virginia, so a lot of the images Burk shows are stuff that, like you said, we grew up with. Do you think this film will be received differently by people who are from different areas versus like people who grew up in the South?
I would hope not. I think that there's more of a connection, obviously, when somebody hears Burk's accent, or they're like, oh, this is a Southerner, But what I really love about Burk is I think that he has the ability to speak to anybody, and that he really has an all-American voice. It doesn't really matter that he's from the South, but I would hope that anybody, in Eugene, Oregon, or in the Midwest, or wherever it is, looks at his humanity and what he's doing with his life, and can connect to the film as well as the next person.
I want you to picture somebody who's 18 years old. They've just got a camera and they've got a dream, and they sit down and they watch this movie. What do you want them to come out thinking?
To love life, to decide to analyze, figure out who exactly they are, and then to follow whoever they are to the best of their ability. You can't do work of any consequence until you know exactly who you are. You can't be somebody else in this business of art. You got to be yourself. So the first thing you have to know, and it's harder when you're young because you have so many outside influences. So the older you get, the easier it is to know who you are. And a lot of people do their very best work when they get older. But of course they got to stay enthusiastic. So.
Well, there you have it, everybody. From some of America's most important cultural moments to the intimacy of Southern life, there is very little that Burk has not covered with his photography. Be sure to check out F11 and Be There as soon as you can, and be sure to check out the rest of our AFF coverage here at Sneak Peek. I'm Blake Bauserman. Thank you so much for watching.